I'm Father Dougal 8000, and welcome to another countless episode of Games That Time Forgot, a series where we tackle cancelled projects, betas, deleted content, and all manner of strange goings-on in the bizarre yet interesting world of video gaming development. And once again, we'll be delving into the contents of Rareware's bag of secret gaming projects to see what's been changed, cancelled, and more insane antics caused by the British developer over the years. Now, one thing that's certainly common to happen for a Rare game is that it'll go into development as a very different game from what's eventually released, and today's subject is no exception. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be taking a look at that infamous game that started as an N64 project, but soon turned into something far more insidious that may very well have influenced the team's eventual buyout by Microsoft. From its humble beginnings as an early title for the system to a controversial latecomer, we'll be investigating the very curious case of Conker's Bad Fur Day. Known by gamers the world over for its scatological pop cultural reference, stuffed humor, the astounding technological aspects given the console it came out on, and its over-the-top deconstruction of both cutesy 3D platformers, and even the idea of senselessly silly mature-rated games, Bad Fur Day is considered by many to be one of the funniest, if not one of the greatest 3D platformers ever made. While I'm not here to debate that particular point, since I myself have never actually played Bad Fur Day, though I'm hoping to get around to it eventually, I am here to at least discuss the game's infamous development history and how it came to be the irreverent cartoony romp of madness that it is today. And to really discover that, we'll have to go way back to the earlier years of the Nintendo 64, specifically the year 1996. Hot off the heels of their hugely successful Killer Instinct beat-em-up series, several members of the KI team banded together to produce something that would be the antithesis of their previously bloody, violent games. The result was a very cute, childlike 3D platformer initially known as Conker's Quest, a game where you would play as the titular cute squirrel as you explored many enormous themed worlds with your girlfriend Barry to collect all 100 presents back from the evil hoodlums. Initially, Conker's Quest came along really well during its development as the team managed to create the general gameplay and environments that would soon after influence the team working on the currently ailing RPG known at the time as Project Dream to retool their game into a 3D platformer along the lines of Conker. This redone game was then announced alongside Conker's Quest at E3 of 1997 as a little thing called Banjo-Kazooie. Curiously enough, while both games were derivatives on the Mario 64 formula, it seems like critics were generally more enthusiastic for Banjo than they were for Conker. A curious bit of foreshadowing for the inevitable, it seems. Anyhow, they were both planned to be out by late 97, but due to a number of issues that cropped up during development, they ended up getting delayed till 1998. This led to the main characters of the two games making their first appearances as cameo characters in the karting classic Diddy Kong Racing, which also has the distinction of being the only console game to feature the original innocent incarnation of Conker himself. Meanwhile, Conker's Quest appeared at E3 of 98 with the new title of 12 Tales Conker 64, apparently from the recent overuse of the word Conker in video game titles, with a planned release date of October 26th that year. At around that time, Banjo-Kazooie was released in June to glowing reviews and fantastic sales, which would soon cause quite the hassle for the Conker team. While the project had gotten far enough to have a 4-player mode and 2 different styles of gameplay between the action-oriented Conker and the more strategic Barry, criticism soon started to direct itself towards 12 Tales. In a market that had become filled with Mario 64 clones and even more cutesy furry animal adventures by that point, Conker 64 ended up with a lot of heat for being the ultimate hybrid of the two concepts. It was made even worse by the fact that while Banjo-Kazooie had at least some Animaniac-style humor and atmosphere to back it up, Conker seemed quite content with having a very sweet, saccharine kind of world. Is this an unfair judgment on the part of the critics? Absolutely. Gameplay is what should matter, not the aesthetics. However, having watched about half an hour or so of 12 Tales footage, I can certainly see where they're coming from. Look and feel of the game is honestly just way too sweet and happy without any real personality inside to make it tolerable for a lot of people to stomach. And even if the gameplay was great, it really would take a lot to get past the game so cringe-worthingly cute as to make the happiest little elf look like something by Lovecraft. This only seemed to be confirmed even more by the 1999 tie-in game on the Game Boy Color, Conker's Pocket Tales, a top-down adventure puzzler intended to serve as a teaser for the upcoming 3D adventures, that instead received average reviews thanks to that overly cutesy nature with nothing really interesting to it. Having played a bit of Pocket Tales myself, while I think it's actually a pretty good game, it really does make a lot of the criticisms on Conker 64's presentation quite valid. At the turn of the millennium, Rareware executives were getting very nervous over this particular controversy, and after an extremely negative test audience reaction, they finally decided that if the game was to be released, it would have to be retooled like nothing had ever been changed within their company. And given how often that actually happens, you know they meant serious business this time. To that end, they made Chris Sever head of the Conker team, who soon after completely redid the game to a more adult-oriented platformer inspired by the likes of South Park. And with that, 12 Tales was changed forever from the cutesy old-style platformer it started as to the cute, bloody mishmash of references now known to the world as Conker's Bad Fur Day. Subsequently, many elements of the gameplay and characters were changed alongside the general tone. Conker was now a selfish, lewd drunkard instead of the sweet, innocent kid he used to be. Large spreading worlds filled with collectibles were replaced with linear levels where the goal was to either finish a quest or get from point A to point B, and the evil woodland hoodlums were turned into evil panther kings, Nazi-inspired teddy bear armies, and operatic pieces of poo-poo. Because the N64 was a family-based console, this move obviously annoyed Nintendo to no end, which drove them to give the game very limited advertising in Playboy magazines, a big ugly advisory stripe on the box, and making sure that Nintendo Power would never, ever acknowledge the game's existence. Thanks to this, in addition to the game's very late release and the console's lifespan in 2001, Conker's Bad Fur Day received poor sales despite tremendous acclaim by critics and gamers alike. It's speculated by some that this sudden dick move from Nintendo might have served as a contribution to Rare's eventual buyout by Microsoft, and to be frank, that wouldn't be too surprising. It's certainly an interesting move for the Japanese publisher to suddenly go back on the most well-known second-party developer like that, and it wouldn't be the first time they butted heads with Rare, I'll tell you what. So, that brings our 12th tale of games that time forgot to a close, and for once I'm actually pretty glad this ended up turning out differently from how it started. While it would be cool to see how a completely cutesy 3D platform without any hint of irony or subversion to it would have played out, I have the feeling it might have ended up being far more painful than it was worth. Though I haven't played Bad Fur Day, as I've already mentioned, I'm glad to see that the game would willingly change itself completely in the hope of making something much better, or at least bearable for gamers to enjoy. Even if you don't like the final product, you have to admit that it's managed to stay in people's heads far more than what it was originally going to be. And you know what? That's not such a bad thing after all. I'm Father Duke 9000, and I hope you enjoyed watching this latest episode of Games That Time Forgot. Until we meet again, have a great day, y'all.
Pass it, squirrel! Look what you've done! I'm blushing! I'm blushing! Oh, what a world! What a world! Who'd have thought a good little squirrel like you could destroy my beautiful flagginess? Oh, I'm going! Oh! Ah! No!
Now that's what I call a bowel movement.